Welcome back, brothers, ladies, and tourists, to another edition of this, the Chapter House, the Old Glory Club's look into the men who make up the chapters of the Old Glory Club. Joining us this week is the Iowa Dragoon Society of, you guessed it, the great state of Iowa. And representing Iowa Dragoon Society is Melchizedek, aka Wolfgang. How are you, sir?
Very well. Happy to be here.
I'm glad that you could come out of occultation to join us this evening. So thank you for that. And Old King Cole, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully, thank you. Is it true what they say that you have a merry old soul?
That is correct.
That's wonderful. I hear that you like to laugh at the privates, and who doesn't? But I had a question for you guys. So I have been reliably informed by the internet, and I think that I first stumbled across this in, it must have been the very early 10s or the very late noughts, that Iowa, in fact, does not exist. Now, I've never met anybody from Iowa, and I've never been there, but you know, you guys naming yourselves after Iowa, I imagine you are actually present in Iowa.
Yes, this is true. Us and the substantial amount of pigs and corn that are in the state. Actually, there are more pigs than there are human beings in the state.
I mean, that makes Iowa sound delicious. Do you guys have, I mean, you know, all across the South, there are wars and many people die over the arguments involving barbecue. But pork being such a heavy staple of barbecue, and I must imagine that Iowa has a specific type of barbecue that only Iowans know about. Is this accurate?
As the state, I do not know. I will say, I don't actually talk about barbecue much because I like to keep my barbecue to myself, because then I have to share less.
I don't know if Iowa actually has like a state barbecue that's unique and distinctive just to Iowa. I think we kind of just like all kinds of barbecue. I hear is kind of my understanding. I will say though, we have the greatest state fair in the country. People from other countries even come specifically to Iowa for our state fair and for Ragbri, which is a bicycle race across the state. So those are things for which we are internationally famous, and I will fight I will fight in a duel anyone who wishes to contest that.
I don't know that I would be very proud of Ragbri necessarily, because it is put on by the Des Moines Register, or some refer to it as the Des Moines Red Star, for reasons that you may be able to gather.
So, you know, I'm going to have to task you guys with creating Iowa barbecue. Even New England, yes, that is, all 6 states of New England has its own barbecue. It's basically Texas barbecue, but the sweetener is maple syrup. So there you go. So is Iowa one of those states where you know, people think of it as being flat expanses of cornfields for hundreds of miles?
I think that is the perception. It does depend where you are in the state. The further north you go, I think the more true that is. You have a lot more flat land, substantially a lot less trees. Whereas, say, further south, it tends to look more like North Missouri, especially the last, row or two of counties.
Yeah, I can confirm that's what it's like. I will say, if you get up into that far northeast corner, it starts getting a lot more forestry, and it's kind of like we've got a piece of Minnesota and Wisconsin in Iowa.
The northeast, yeah, I'm looking at it right now on the map. That is a lot of farmland. That's pretty cool. I mean, you know, for a place that doesn't exist, it seems like it's got something going for it. So where in Iowa? Oh well, before I get into this, Iowa Dragoon Society. So are you guys skilled in light reconnaissance?
Not to the same level that I'm sure the actual first dragoons were, but there's a number of us I think who could handle themselves fairly well in the woods and with a rifle.
What about on a horse?
Well, there's honestly not that many horses out here these days. There did so out in Des Moines, there out in the old Fort Des Moines, which is I think now occupied by the zoo. There, that used to be a cavalry outpost, so we did have a substantial amount of horses back, say, at the turn of the previous century, but a lot of that's died away just due to automation. But that's not necessarily unique to Iowa.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole of the West. The so the first Dragoon Regiment, is that who you're named after? Were they did they have a lot of Iowans representing?
So I believe it's actually we're named after the 5th Dragoons. Basically, if you look up Dragoon Trail, then it's after the 1st Dragoons, and the 1st Dragoons were some of the first Americans to come into the state, and they opened it up for settlement by the people who would become the founding stock of Iowa. And so we decided to name ourselves after them, not because they were full of Iowans, but because they opened our state up to settlement by our people, and we were inspired by the idea of the frontierman on his horse, with his gun, traveling into the unknown to blaze a path for his civilization to advance.
Put more succinctly, to have dominion over all of creation. No, there are some interesting characters in the men who came over with the First Dragoons. I don't remember if he was actually ever crossed into Iowa, but he was at least part of the headquarters further on the east. But when Jefferson Davis was part of those same First Dragoons.
Jefferson Davis was a part of the First Dragoons, you're saying?
Yes. I do not know. I had to look at the times. I'm not sure when he was in there, if that was part of the expansion into Iowa or not, but he was at least a member of them at one point.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So when the Dragoons got here, do you know, obviously they found the Sioux, but it seems like the Sioux might have been further west. Do you know what other tribes they ran into when they got here?
You're drawing on a spot that's a little blind for me, but I know I think the Keokuk would be one, and the Meskwaki would be another one. There's actually a large, I don't know how large it actually really is, but there is a casino out east that the Meskwaki currently own.
Now, is this like a heavily contested area?
The stock?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What about the stock? And wasn't there a Black Hawk War between where some Iowa tribes?
Yes, that does ring a bell.
No, please do elaborate.
My memory is hazy. I didn't research. I haven't read up on it a lot, but my understanding is something like the Iowa. There were some tribes, the Iowa tribes, Black Hawk tribes, where they'd had some settlement in Illinois. They'd gotten pushed over the river into Iowa, and then they went back to Illinois for some hunting grounds, and then American soldiers basically just wiped them out, crushed them in battle. And yeah, it's kind of one of those footnote wars where it's like, oh, the Black Hawk War, it happened. Who won? America, obviously, because we don't, and it's pretty small. Hardly qualifies as a war, in my opinion. But yeah.
So pushing west into Iowa was still contested territory. It's not like the Dragoons just rode in. They were like, hey, everything's cool here. Let's go, guys.
Yes, that I think is about a fair assessment of the broad situation.
So where in Iowa are you guys located?
The chapter as a whole initially started mostly in the Des Moines area. We had some guys who were some of the guys were out further east towards Iowa City, Cedar Rapids area, and they got connected with some other guys, and that at that time kind of doubled our numbers. Not quite, I think about double them. So mostly central and eastern Iowa.
So you don't have anybody out in Omaha, near Omaha, or up near Sioux City?
No, those are much more sparsely populated, with the exception of towards Omaha and Council Bluffs. But if the Nebraska guys would like to take Council Bluffs, that can be arranged. We'll have to come to some sort of treaty. But if the Midwest maybe can come together at a convention at some point, we can discuss parsing up some territory. As I understand, I'm going to say I don't see an Illinois chapter out there yet, so maybe we can split that between us and Wisconsin and maybe the Missouri guys.
Yeah, I do recall the Omaha guys talking about what to do about Council Bluffs, and it sounded like they didn't really want it. Is that something that you would willingly give them for other concessions?
Perhaps that can be discussed over. I think some of the discussion was over maybe some games of cornhole and some beer, but we shall see.
Well, that sounds like an amicable enough way to decide the fate of whoever it is that lives in Council Bluffs. This actually kind of makes sense to me. I guess if people are going to be that far west in Iowa, that you might just say, just join the Nebraska chapter, because they're mostly in Omaha anyway.
Yeah, there's a certain practicality of that sort of situation, I suppose. But any guy who's out Council Bluffs, or out maybe east of Council Bluffs or whatever, that can be a decision he makes, and we will figure out what works best.
Well, that's good. I don't want the first OGC war to be over such a pittance of land as Council Bluffs. But how far away? Like, say you're in the center of Des Moines, you're going to the center of Cedar Rapids. How far? Like, how long of a drive is that?
I think just shy of 2 hours.
Okay, so that's not the worst that I've heard. I guess Sioux City would be what, like 5, 6?
Yes, I did that drive. Was that this year or last year? I can't remember. But I did that drive somewhat recently. Yeah, I would think it was about 5 hours.
I had a friend years ago who was traveling across Iowa, and they're just driving through the cornfields, and they saw and they swear they saw a tiger come out of the cornfield into the middle of the road. And then they woke up, and their friend had their hand on the steering wheel and was like, "You're doing a good job." Is that the experience of driving across country in Iowa?
I think I've never had that experience, but I've been around long enough here to where it doesn't particularly bother me. But I would not be surprised. There are, as I said, North Iowa particularly it fits that stereotype of kind of the Midwest flat, sort of just corn as far as the eye can see. I suppose if you're up there, that would be much more of an issue.
Yeah, I mean,
I can speak to
looking at. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so your friend might legitimately have seen a big cat. We get rumors of mountain lions every few years. My understanding is that they will leave Colorado, they'll travel through Iowa on their way east, and I don't know where they end up. Officially, there's no mountain lions here in the state, but we know they pass through periodically, so it's possible that your friend truly did see one. As for other wildlife and seeing them when you're driving, it's not so much a problem during the day, but for my work, I have to be up before the sun many times, and I have seen many deer, many raccoons, foxes. Those are the main ones that I have seen driving around in the pre-dawn hours. Now, I live in a relatively urban area, but the way the things are laid out, there's a deer run near my house. And so we tell guests when they are leaving after dark, hey, when you go down that road, watch out, because the deer like to run through there. consistently, and I have seen deer running in a relatively urban area. I mean, I'm kind of on the edge of town, but it's still rather urban, suburban, I suppose, is actually. So yeah, there's lots of wildlife moving around, and I've actually heard sometimes the government tries to issue more hunting licenses to bring the deer population number down because of the number of car accidents related to people hitting deer while driving cars.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about how big is hunting out there. Is it like I don't imagine there's a terrible amount of it in the cornfields, but further south where it looks a little more mountainous and forested, is that is that big hunting territory?
Yes, I think because I just looked at this map recently for back during last deer season. Well, I guess just if first explain, the deer season runs from, I think it's roughly October, and that's normally there's a youth season and bow season that runs that early, and then gun season starts in December. There's two of them. One that's I think runs, I'll say it's like 5 days, like the first week of December, and then there's like a week or so, like a week or a weekend off, and then basically from then till like December 23rd, normally there's a second gun season that runs. But it is fairly deer season, or deer hunting is fairly popular out here. Most of it, I think, the largest allocation of deer tags out in the state is mostly centered around central Iowa, particularly Warren County, which is just to the south of Des Moines.
Interesting, because my understanding was generally the further south you went in Iowa, the more tags were available.
I guess I wasn't clear. That is where a lot of tags are. So like in North Iowa, there might be 500 tags in a particular county. Warren County, I think last year had something in the neighborhood of like 3,000 or 4,000.
Jeez, that's a lot of tags for a single county. I mean, I don't know how big the counties are out there, but
they're fairly square. It might take you 45 minutes to an hour. I just guesstimating off the top of my head to get across a county. I've hunted down there, and I will tell you there are a good deal of deer. In fact, last time I was down there, I was in a clearing in a tree line, and deer. I just bought a new rifle for that year because I'd taken a lot of shots in this particular area before at longer range. It's about 100, 125 yards with open sights, and that was not particularly great. So I bought a rifle with a scope, and of course the first deer I see is shows up 5 yards in front of me. So
yeah, I mean that's always the way it goes. That's kind of funny though. I mean, so this, correct me if I'm wrong, but Iowa has a relatively low population for its size. Is that correct?
yes, I think it last I knew, at least when I was in high school, I think it was about 2.5 million. I think it's closer to 3 now. I will say the capital of Des Moines, that area has grown quite a bit. I think back in the early thousands, that was somewhere about, the whole metro was somewhere about maybe 500,600,000. I think now it's closer to 800.
Has that been natural growth, or is it like most other places in the country where they're just dumping people there?
I think a little bit of both. The Des Moines proper is fairly ethnically diverse, whereas most of the suburbs are much more predominantly white. There has been one of the things that you will see occasionally is people moving from other states that are much more expensive, say like areas in New England or California or whatnot, and so selling a house out there for a large sum of money, and then buying a house here for a fraction of what they sold their house out there for, that winds up being bigger and nicer in a larger yard and all that.
Yeah, I mean that's about what the Nebraska guys were telling me about Omaha as well. How did Des Moines get diversified? I mean, like Chicago and New England had it from the Great Migration, but is that what affected Des Moines as well?
There's a little bit of that. Honestly, the black population in Des Moines is not. I don't think it's any more substantial than any other particular area. Des Moines has kind of been landing spot for a number of, I guess you would say, refugees, and some of those more legitimate than others. But a lot of that goes back to, at least in my understanding, goes back to Vietnam. We have a sizable Vietnamese and Indo-Chinese population here. Some of that's in its second or third generation now. You have that. You also had a number of people fleeing from Yugoslavia who have come here. In my personal experience, mostly Bosniaks, but
Yeah.
Interesting. What's that made the? I mean, so whenever you have ethnically diverse areas, you get ethnic enclaves. Like, is there like a Vietnam town or like a Slav town?
not particularly. There may be very small, like, strips of a neighborhood that are that way. I don't think there are, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't think there are any particular places that are, like, yes, this is where all the Vietnamese are, or this is where this particular place is. Though that has changed even within the last 50 years. There used to be the south side of Des Moines. That was where a lot of Italians wound up settling. In fact, there's locally, there's a fairly well-known Italian grocer here that the grocery store is fairly small. It's the same original building that's, I'd have to guess, maybe 500 or 600 square foot of actual sales floor. But every grocery store in town carries their particular blend of Italian sausage.
Your question about there being a Vietnam town or this town or that town, if you go on the Des Moines Riverwalk, there is a section. It's kind of like a park where that city's put up, and it's got like some Asian pagoda type stuff, and there's some sister city. I don't know. I think it's in China. Maybe
it is. I believe it is a Japanese one, actually. There's another thing over near the state capitol that has one of their bells, but I think that those are both Japanese in origin. There is a decent, for as far as an immigrant population size, of Japanese expats out here.
That also sounds counterintuitive, like in the center of the state. Like, it makes sense when you run into them all over, the West Coast, California especially. But one wonders how large populations like that found their way to Des Moines. But I suppose if you're going to have foreign populations in your city, the Japanese are probably the best you can get. So what? I mean, guys, like I said before, I don't know a single thing about Iowa, and that includes Iowan politics. Is Des Moines one of those reliably blue cities inside of a larger red state?
Yeah, that is true. The way as far as the general political dichotomy goes here in the state, you've got sort of three main centers that are much more progressive or liberal, however you want to say that, I guess. Des Moines, Polk County is fairly blue because you have the city of Des Moines and its metro, as well as actually, I can't remember. Cole, is ISU, is that in Polk County or is that north?
No. ISU is not in Polk County. It's north. It's like, I think that's Story County.
Yes, that's correct. But anyway, so you got Des Moines, you've got the major college campuses, which we have two really substantial ones: Iowa State University and Iowa. And both of those are those are kind of your hotbeds of sort of progressive left-wing politics. Just as a point of fact that I find interesting and maybe relevant to some people, for positive or negative reasons, but the campus of Iowa at one point, at least this is what I remember from 10 years ago, was like, I think the biggest party school at that time, or at least one of them.
It does have that reputation.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's probably as many universities claiming to be the biggest party university in the country as there are universities in the country, except for maybe Liberty. But they've got their own thing.
Yeah, I never went to Iowa, but I do remember a friend of mine who told me about his time in the marching band, and they had a how shall we say, fairly flamboyant member of the band. And when he would go up and down the bleachers, they would just the low brass section would just play out FAG all the time. So,
I mean, good for them. This was from a different time. The past is a different country. So when you guys started getting together in Des Moines, was this people that, did you guys already know each other, or did you come together through setting up this chapter?
Most of it was through setting up the chapter. Initially, there was only really one of us out here, and then we were connected through just the inquiries sent into Central and met up here in Des Moines. And then, we're working towards getting a chapter founded and trying to find enough people to actually build out, what we needed for that. And when we were getting ready to kind of move that direction, then we wound up doubling, because a good deal of guys out towards Cedar Rapids wound up wanting to form a chapter, and they found out about us and we found out about them, and we wound up meeting, and it all was fairly amicable, and here we are today with double the initial members that I thought we were going to have.
Yeah, what's interest been like over the months since you? Oh, wait, how long have you guys been established? It's been like 2 months.
I think it was February. I think when we were officially voted in. So was that 3 months now? I think.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
We had a lot more interest initially before we wound up becoming a chapter. I've not had a whole lot since then. I did have a number of emails about the time we were voted in as a chapter, but I've never heard back from those individuals. So if that happens to be you and you're listening, please send an email again to the email you initially sent it to, and I will respond.
Yeah, I mean, different areas of the country have different approaches to how they like the people there live. Everybody in New England thinks they're Politico, and almost all of them are shit libs. And the ones who aren't are either libertarians, God bless them if you're in upstate Maine or New Hampshire. But the right wingers in New England tend to be a little on the I don't want you to say the kookier side, if only because being surrounded, in a sea of shit libs is, it has an effect on on one's disposition if you're not in agreement with all the insanity that is part and parcel of being a shit lib in America these days. So what are kind of the people of Iowa like with regards to their engagement with things going on in the world? I guess is it a lot of apathy, or are people kind of like on autopilot, the kind of complacent?
I think a lot of it is honestly autopilot. Am I coming through? I'm gonna say my side is breaking up.
You're coming through as far as I can tell.
Okay, sorry. I was just getting some weird distortion. I think a lot of it's honestly apathy and just go along to get along. But I don't know. Do you have a different perspective on that, there, Cole?
This is something where I want to. Let me say a few things here. Okay, for the voting population at large, there's a spectrum. I have some friends who are very rural, and I have some blue collar friends where they are very ardently right wing, and I have been surprised at some of the racist comments that have been made at different times. And then I've also met plenty of people where it's evident to me that they're like normies. They're just kind of middle, they would like to vote Democrat, but they don't. But it's kind of like the Democrats are so bad right now that it's just not a realistic thing. And then there's plenty of people who keep voting Democrat, just regardless of all other considerations. So in terms of we have 4 congressional districts. The 4th congressional district is our northwest one. It is the most strongly Republican. It's also the most rural. The others basically all have some urban city in it that makes it kind of a battleground. So I don't remember which one Marionette Miller Meeks is in, but her district is always like 20 votes will determine the outcome one way or the other. And that's the one where the University of Iowa is in. And then I live in the 3rd district, and my opinion is basically that the race is won or lost based on what happens in Polk County, which is the capital county, because it's got Des Moines and a whole bunch of suburbs, and the rural districts will all vote very Republican. But I think for Republicans, it becomes a game play in how many suburban people can you turn out in Polk County to win the vote there. I'm not as familiar with the Northeast District. A friend told me that basically Iowans vote for someone that they would like to have a beer with. And if you can be that guy, you will win the governor's seat. So that's part of the concern about why in the Democrats running Rob Sand, who's been our state auditor like forever, because it seems like he can be that guy in many ways. And it seems like somehow the Democrats have secretly, behind the scenes, just predetermined before the primary caucus run that he's the guy, so that they can just have him go through and be the only guy fighting through there, while the Republicans have about a half dozen guys. And our front runner right now, Randy Feenstra, I don't think anyone's excited about him, is the problem. I think everyone kind of has this consensus that he is probably going to win the primary, and then he will probably lose the gubernatorial election against Rob Sand. But it doesn't look like there's enough support behind anyone else to oust Randy Feenstra. So I don't know. We might see almost 20 years of Republican governorship come to an end just because there's some big money behind Randy Feenstra, and not in that would be a bad thing, in my opinion. Just as a concerned citizen who has his own preferences, not speaking on behalf of the club in any, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the Old Glory Club doesn't have much in the way of, things that you must hit. You must be a man of 18 years or older and not of the left, and a man of good character. Saying not of the left is kind of redundant when you say of good character, but what are you going to do? So, I mean, it's one of these things where, we naturally are going to swing towards libertarians, or which we don't have many of, or actually I don't know if any, or moderates or people on the right, because just because of that line, not of the left, and saying something like they'll vote for anybody that they think they can have a beer with. I mean, this kind of that kind of reminds me of the elections in the early noughts with George W., where this was kind of a slur used against Red America, where they don't really care about whether or not somebody is going to be good at governing. They just want to have somebody that they'd feel comfortable palling around with. Now, does that, like, you were just kind of saying that rings true in that the Democrat might take it because he is able to put on those airs. And you say there's nobody that the Republicans can put up that kind of has that personality?
I I think there are other guys in the Republican Party who could absolutely defeat Rob Sand. I just who are in fact in the race right now and running. Um, I just my understanding is that Randy Feenstra is the front runner who will probably get the nomination, and my personal I can speak for my personal preference as to who I want to see get the Republican nomination and who I think would also make a good nomination. I think my personal preference would be for Zach Lane. He's gotten the Make America Healthy Again endorsement. He was on Tucker Carlson's show a bit ago. I heard about his campaign very early in the process. He's a sixth generation Iowan. He's an entrepreneur who's done very well for himself. So much of his campaign is actually self-funded. And I personally feel that he is the only guy who really gets it, because he keeps saying making comments along the lines of Iowa is for us. It is our home. It is our community, and it is not an investment for outsiders. It is not a place where Wall Street just buys up a bunch of Iowa farmland because that makes a good investment for their portfolio. One of his big talking points is the seed companies. It's like Syngenta, Bayer, and I don't know. There's another one, and one of them's owned by German. What?
Suckup, I think, is another one.
Okay, one of them's owned by Bayer is owned by Germans. The other one, the one I'm not remembering, is owned by BlackRock, and then Syngenta is owned by the Chinese Communist Party of literal China, and he is the only guy in there who's saying, hey, Iowa is number 2 in the nation for new cancer diagnoses. And it's real for him because the people who are dying are his neighbors. He's been to funerals for like his friend's dad or uncle or whatever, and where he's been to funerals for these farmers where they've spent their lives, out working the land, very stereotypical. This is what you think of when you think of an Iowan kind of person, and they're dying because the companies are putting bad chemicals into the Roundup, and I mean that's the assumption, because the only study that we've had on it is like 20 or 30 years old. It's been discredited, and and it was paid for by one of the big companies at the time. So there's a lot that's just wrong with the system right now, where my opinion is that Zach Lane needs to win, because he will actually go in and he'll clean up. He has the right idea that this is Iowa. It is our home. It is where we live. It is where we are going to raise our families. It's where we have our communities, and he gets it. I haven't heard as much about Steen, but a friend told me that Adam Steen would also be a great governor. I just prefer Zach Lane over Steen, but I would be perfectly at peace if either of them won.
I think this is ultimately emblematic of a broader issue. It's not particular to Iowa, but where you have this sort of generational divide. Like you had mentioned that some of this reminded you of, kind of things in the 90s. I think a lot of people, say over the age of 45 or so, think that, the world, the United States, it's still just like 1995 in America and not 2025, more than 30 years later. And there are people who have been born since then, the 40 and younger crowd, who understand that the way things were back then are gone, and you cannot go back to them, and you have to deal with reality as it is now. And you can't pretend that, it's just sunshine and roses anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And you're right, this is a nationwide phenomena. Our friend Christopher Sandbach is fond of pointing out just how bad things are across this country right now. And it doesn't seem like, as you say, anyone over the age of 40 knows or cares. Or even wants to know, even if they have some kind of inkling that things aren't quite right. But talking about Iowa specifically, something you brought up, Cole, was basically big agriculture, right? Big ag money, I imagine, is definitely a huge factor in the state. And it when I think of big money concerns, especially things like big agriculture, I guess it makes sense to me that they would put their money behind a Republican candidate for fear that a Democrat candidate would come in and start making changes regarding like emissions or sustainable energy for their processing plants. Is that generally how it goes?
Yeah, I think Big Ag does tend to lean Republican. The Republican Party here generally has some kind of an alliance with the business interests and the one example of this probably is during COVID or shortly thereafter, we reduced the unemployment benefits that people could get because it was, hey, we need to get people back to work. And I don't know. I think personally that was a bad move politically. It probably didn't look good. I think at the time, I don't think it looks good now, but I think the blowback is past probably at this point. I am honestly really surprised that like the unions have not cut a deal with the Republicans at all, because the Democrat Party at least at the national level is all like, hey, let's bring in foreigners, and it's like, well, you know what foreigners do? They break up unions. Unions should at least at some level have made a deal with the Republican Party to not have foreigners brought in and have their unions busted up, but that's not happened. Yeah, so big money business interest seems to be behind the Republican Party, and they make deals to get Amazon in and Facebook in and stuff. Yeah.
Well, those companies, specifically those companies, they bring in foreign workers. I knew a guy who was out there at the Amazon warehouse, I think out in Bondurant, just northeast of Des Moines. And he was telling me about how they just had people from literally all over the world just working there. It's very difficult to unionize if people have no sort of shared culture or heritage, or even just something as basic as language.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Amazon acquired Whole Foods some time ago, but I don't know if this was under Amazon's tenure. But I do remember some years ago a study was put out by Whole Foods because they were determining that they were trying to determine how to best stop unionization, and they determined that having an ethnically diverse workforce is the best way to stop people from unionizing, which is absolutely hilarious, but also didn't really seem to end up on the radar of any people who are actually in unions. But I suppose that the way that the unions operate and the way that their patronage network works, I don't think they are actually interested in anything like that. They just want to make sure they keep getting their money. But this actually reminded me. So our guys not our guys in Idaho, but I guess our friends or our fellow Americans in Idaho, have an incumbent governor who is in bed with their big agriculture industry, and absolutely is 100% in favor of importing the entirety of the third world and keeping ICE out so that the ag companies can get their cheap labor. Do you guys, does Iowa also have a problem with immigrant labor all over the farms?
Generally, that is there's a presence there of that. I don't know how honestly widespread that is, just because I myself don't deal with that on any sort of regular basis.
I'll say few things here. Like many Iowans, I detasseled back in the day, and it was my understanding that there were a number of migrant Hispanic crews, I think, who would detassel and what was it? The other one, anyways. Being in the trades, where I see it is kind of where I see a lot of it, because I've been because like I'm on job sites, and I see a number of Hispanics, and I'm pretty sure like at least one of the Hispanics that there was a joke. There were some guys who were joking one day where it's like, yeah, he hasn't shown up for work for a week. It's because he's not here legally. And it's like, oh, okay. And then I know a guy who works in a warehouse. I have also worked in warehouses, and there's a lot of foreign workers in there, where it's obvious that they're not native Iowans in any real sense.
Are you saying they put up signs in languages other than English?
I think Spanish is the main one. I'm not sure I'm getting your comment. Understand what you mean. Sorry.
I think he was making a joke. But
yeah,
I have to ask this question because everybody gets this question. How's the Jeep Menace? Have you guys been hit with them yet?
There is a presence. It's in the kind of usual places you would expect to find it, particularly places like the tech sector. So yeah, there's a presence. It's nowhere near as bad as say places like Texas. Like I think isn't Dallas fairly inundated with that sort of problem?
Yeah, there's a few places in Texas that have it as a big issue. I think that where is that clown like what's his name, Shri Zandahar, or that the Indian in Congress who wears like the most hilarious toupee you've ever seen. You know who I'm talking about?
I do. I couldn't name them, but I don't generally learn the names of random Indians.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he didn't remain just a random Indian, but what are you going to do? That's the modern day. Getting back to focus on the chapter a little bit more. What's like your kind of age demographics?
Can I actually go back to the presence of Indians for just a moment?
Yeah, please do.
We do have that Hare Krishna University located out in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. Don't know exactly how they got it cleared, but we have a literal like Hindu university, whatever, in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. So there is that as well. Not happy about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to just go to your other question about the age demographics. Generally, it's really, I think, fairly widespread. They're anywhere from guys from early 20s all the way to, I'd say, about, I think, mid 40s, generally speaking. There's also a good number of us who are married with children. Actually, I think at this rate, I think our TFR by the end of the year is going to be somewhere like 4 or 5 for the chapter.
Wow.
Is that averaged does that like include the non-married guys to bring the average down, or?
Well, if I remember right, TFR is normally gauged by the number of women, so.
Oh, okay.
But
so,
but I think I think on either the guys in the chapter or people who are friends of the chapter who aren't officially involved. Yeah, I think it's like there's at least 4 kids who've been born in. Actually, no, it's 5 since the start of the year.
Yeah, the married guys are definitely having plenty of kids, and I'm sure all the unmarried guys would like to be married and having a lot of kids.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are pumping them out. That's great. You already have the next generation going to hand off the reins to in 18 years. I know that you guys are like a newer chapter, but what have your meetups been like so far?
Pretty good. We meet. We generally we'll meet somewhere that is convenient for everybody, just because of the demographic dispersion. Because about half of us are in the Des Moines area, about half of us are out in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids area. So we'll meet somewhere either in the middle or pick one side or the other, and mostly it's getting down to we'll meet up, have food, some beers or whatever, and get down to whatever business is relevant at that time. It's been pretty good. It's nice to have seen a regular cohort of guys who always come out.
Do you guys have any plans for like do you have a lot of hunters? Like, do you have plans for hunting trips? Like, what are the big plans coming out of the Iowa Dragoon Society right now?
I've actually been thinking about doing something on the hunting side, because I know there are a number of us, but if I can use a better way of speaking English than not is anyway. But thinking about something as far as organizing a sort of either hunting trip or introducing guys who aren't in hunting, just, hey, here's how you actually, break down a deer, so that you can actually take care of yourself. Because I go out deer hunting, as I said, I think earlier in the stream. But when you wind up paying for the tag and the round or two of ammunition used getting a deer, and even what you use for zeroing your rifle or shotgun, whatever you wind up using, that winds up being fairly cheap meat. So having that sort of skill to where you can actually provide for yourself, and if you have a family, that as well is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, for the hunting out there, I mean, you said like an amazing amount of tags per season. Do those tags all get used up? Like, are there tags left over at the end of the year, or are there like some hunters out there who'll bag like 100 deer a season?
Nothing quite so grand as that. Most of the tags do wind up getting used. You occasionally have, and I don't think I've seen it in a few years. I should ask a friend of mine who also goes hunting. But we'll have occasionally seasons, like special seasons, normally in January, where it's like, well, we didn't fill our quota for this year in this county or whatever, and they will have a special season that is a little more broad. So the state of Iowa it's kind of peculiar for its hunting season, particularly around guns. The two probably most popular cartridges for deer hunting on this continent are actually banned in the state. 30-06 and 30-30 are you cannot use. If I remember correctly, the minimum is like it has to be a 350 caliber and has, I want to say it's like 1,000. If I remember, it's 1,000 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, but something like that. Go ahead.
As I recall, it's basically you have to use a 357 or bigger, and it has to be like a pistol round magazine. So, like the 30-06 and has the chart is a rifle round where the cartridge is bigger in diameter at the back than the projectile, which is going to be leaving from your gun. This allows for more powder. Straight-walled pistol cartridges are allowed. So like a 357 Magnum would be okay from a rifle, or a 44 Special, 44 Magnum. There's some others that are okay. The logic is basically Iowa is so flat that we would have, it'd be dangerous to be allowing 30-06 and other rifle rounds, because they could theoretically travel way too far and then hurt someone, but inadvertently.
There has been some attention by gun and ammunition manufacturers for that reason. The lower bound limit is, I think it is 35 caliber, because you have things like 350 Legend and 360 Buckhammer that have come out recently to match those requirements, and they are effectively, ballistically speaking, I think roughly similar to 30-30 or like 35 Remington. But I think the max you can go up to is like 50 caliber. But again, I don't think it says in the legislation, because this actually changed, I want to say it was like 5 years ago or something like that. for the ammunition requirements. But I don't think it actually technically has to be a straight wall cartridge. I think you could have a bottleneck cartridge, but again, I'd have to go back and review the particular legislation.
Is 4570 a popular round up there?
I wouldn't be surprised. I've talked about that with a relation of mine who lives out of state who would like to come out here, and he has a 45.7, I think a Henry rifle. That would be legal.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have considered, when you said pistol rounds only, that seemed a little ridiculous to me. But when you put that Iowa is so flat, it's that doesn't seem as ridiculous on its face as some of the other explanations for ammunition restrictions. I mean, do you guys consider that ridiculous, or is that actually pretty reasonable?
Generally, yes. I'm sure if a guy wanted to wildcat some sort of cartridge, he could make something that was technically compliant, but would otherwise be fairly dangerous for the concerns that they have. With say something like 30-06.
I will.
Go ahead.
I will add a friend. I was talking about this some years ago with a friend of mine, and my friend was saying, like, yeah, these pistol rounds kind of only have like 100 yards are only good out to like 100 yards or something, maybe a little bit more. But where are you going to be hunting the deer? You're going to be hunting them in the brush. Well, 100 yards is more than enough range when you're hunting them in the brush. That was his opinion. I am not an accomplished hunter, so I don't have a very strong opinion. But
I think it does as with anything around firearms. It's going to depend on your particular circumstances. Like a guy who's hunting out in the Rockies is going to want something that's going to be larger and higher velocity than, say, a guy who's hunting in the woods of Pennsylvania. But just something that should be noted. So the gun season in Iowa encompasses both shotguns and rifles. But a just particular interesting point that is just silly bit of trivia really ultimately. But for shotguns, you can only use solid projectiles. You cannot use anything like buckshot or anything similar to that as far as deer hunting goes.
And then don't we have a muzzleloader season as well?
Yes, that runs. I think that runs earlier. I want to say it's like October, November.
So yeah, we have like a bow season. We have shotgun 1, shotgun 2, and then we have a muzzleloader season. Am I forgetting any?
As far as arms, not particularly, there was I think like a youth and otherwise disabled persons season that runs, but that's also earlier in the year, just because it's going to be warmer and much more comfortable for like a 12-year-old who's out hunting for the first time.
Well, I think that the 4570 would be a wonderful round for the Iowa Dragoons official round. If you guys are going to be riding on horseback with carbines, why not a lever action 4570? That just seems right to me.
Well, that might spark a conversation on firearms and what you want in a rifle, but that's maybe beyond the scope of this particular stream.
Yeah, actually, maybe next time we can delve into that if you'd like. You'll be back around sometime next year, so we'll figure something out for then. But we've burned through this hour, and my guys, you get the final question. Any piece of advice for your brothers across the country?
You go first, Matt.
All right. My advice to our brothers across the country is stay frosty. I know times are tough, and there's a lot that will incite you to anger, and you just have to keep your cool. And we are in this for the long haul. We are in this to win. We are not in this to have moments of passion that result in nothing. We are in this to win, so stay frosty.
I will just addendum that with, just remember where the hostile fire is coming from, and if you have issues, inside the trenches, keep it in there. Yeah,
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you, Iowa Dragoon Society, for joining us on this episode of the Chapter House. Look forward to seeing you again in less than a year, but in several months' time. Be sure to join us next week for the Great Northern Society of the great state of Minnesota. There is no Pony Express this week. Most of us are going to be gathered to discuss how to spend all of our teal bucks that came to us by way of a Mexican from Israel. So, we've got important business to take care of. Be sure to join us every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, the only time zone for American Spirits, where all of the important stuff is actually being said.